Growing up, almost all of us heard our parents yell from the hallway to turn off the lights. The reasoning was always exactly the same. Money doesn't grow on trees. But if we take a step back and actually run the numbers, does that age-old household wisdom hold up? This equation breaks down the exact energy cost. If you leave a standard 20-watt bulb on for a full 10 hours, it consumes 200 watt-hours of energy. At average energy prices, that extended glow costs you a grand total of 3 cents. Now, let's say you're rushing out the door for 2 hours, and you decide to spend 5 minutes walking through the house to turn off 6 of those lights. You have just saved yourself exactly 1.8 cents. So despite the heated family arguments, the literal financial stakes of leaving the lights on are virtually non-existent. The economist Gary Becker built a framework for situations exactly like this. It's called rational choice theory, and it argues that we should weigh the literal costs and benefits of our actions to make logical decisions. This chart compares the effort of turning off those lights to standard labor rates. If you spend 5 minutes of your time to save 1.8 cents, you are paying yourself an hourly wage of 22 cents. That is massively below the minimum wage of any developed nation. And there are secondary benefits to keeping them on. A well-lit house provides a minor security upgrade to deter burglars. That fraction of a cent is exceptionally cheap compared to hiring a security guard for $60 an hour. This creates a strange loop. Strictly according to economic math, taking the time to wander through your house turning off lights is a completely irrational waste of human effort. Which brings us to a glaring contradiction. If leaving the lights on makes mathematical sense, why does it remain a leading trigger for domestic disputes? The economist Richard Thaler answers this by stepping away from pure math and into behavioral economics. He developed a concept called mental accounting, pointing out that human brains do not operate like spreadsheets. This scale illustrates that exact mental conflict. Thaler noted how easily we can go out to dinner and happily leave a $10 tip for a server, only to come home and feel our blood boil because someone left a 1-cent light bulb burning in the hallway. Our psychological ledger cares far less about the actual dollar amount and far more about the specific context of how that money is spent. We don't get angry because leaving the light on is going to bankrupt us. The frustration comes from a deep-seated resistance to unnecessary waste. In economics, there's a term called mental utility, basically our overall sense of satisfaction or happiness. Seeing energy burned for no reason directly lowers that mental utility, making a fraction of a penny feel heavy and emotional. The famous British economist John Maynard Keynes wouldn't have bothered with this. His focus was always on macroeconomics, the broad, sweeping movements of entire nations. Keynes spent his time theorizing how to solve massive crises like the Great Depression. When you are trying to figure out how to put millions of starving people back to work, a few cents lost to a light bulb doesn't even register. But for the rest of us, operating on a household level, that single wasted penny still registers in our irrational modern brains as a profound personal failure. This exposes the hard limit of pure economic theory. We don't live in isolated financial vacuums. We navigate a dense, complex web of human relationships. The author Stephen J. Dubner once tried to apply pure market incentives to a social setting. Following the logic that flight attendants perform similar services to cab drivers or waiters, he tried to hand a cash tip to a flight attendant. She was immediately indignant. She refused the money and snapped that she wasn't a waitress. Dubner's economic logic was technically sound, but it completely ignored the social norms and expectations of her profession. You'd hit a similar wall if you tried to apply rational choice theory to your family. Imagine visiting your parents, refusing to turn off the lights, and then attempting to hand them 35 cents to compensate for the week's electricity. It would be incredibly embarrassing. Imposing cold market dynamics onto family relationships doesn't solve the problem, it creates entirely new ones. Economist Paul Milgram notes that prioritizing economic efficiency and maximizing marginal utility, getting the absolute most value out of every decision, is a terrible way to manage human relationships. The way our family members operate is rarely based on the current price of a kilowatt hour. It is often the result of deeply ingrained historical habits. If your parents or grandparents grew up during post-war austerity, They survived in an environment of strict rations and shortages. In that world, avoiding waste wasn't a quirk of mental accounting. It was a daily requirement for survival. Respecting those emotional preferences carries far more weight in a relationship than the 22-cent hourly wage you earn by saving 5 minutes of walking. In the end, reaching for that light switch has nothing to do with saving 1.8 cents. It is a low-cost signaling mechanism, a small daily gesture that shows you care about the wishes of others, buying peace of mind and preserving the harmony of the house.